live the narcissist versus the empath on Let's Talk. Last night's discussion was great, and we got really great feedback to where we are doing part 2 with my returning guest, Ron P. Payne. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So this time, when instead of waiting to the end of the discussion to ask questions, go ahead and start posting your questions on the in the comment section, so we go ahead and pick them up and start talking about it, like instead of waiting to the end of the discussions. Okay.
Yeah.
So after I rewatched last night's video, I realized I said supply about 7,455 times, and I had to ask myself, why did I use the word supply so many times? And it's because I think for so long I had so many questions, and when you're like, as I was saying earlier, like a person, imagine a person like Jenga blocks, right? And then all of a sudden, when a narcissist comes in your life, when they start putting you down, each time they put you down, you don't want to be that person, so you allow them to take a block away from you. And next thing you know, every block that's taken away from you have all these holes in it, and literally you fall apart and you're still walking.
Yeah.
So you start asking yourself, like, hey, how did this happen? And it's because, like we said yesterday, you have good supply to offer, and they take advantage of it. So that's why I was like, it's not me, it's supply.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, they wouldn't have been drawn to you if you didn't have anything to offer. And that's a significant part, and that people have to identify. And the thing that you have to offer is the first thing that they target, because that's the thing that's going to break you and bring you down as to where you can be controlled. Other than that, so all those good attributes, you may be good at making decisions. The first thing they do is question your decision making. Correct. You may be the perfect shape, and they let you know what, you either need to gain a little weight because you're too small, or you need to lose a little weight because you're too big. You're not good with using money, and you sitting on a bank full of money, but they don't have any, but they're trying to take and project themselves onto you. And so those are the things that you start doubting. The very thing that you had, that you built your confidence in and caused you to be confident, is the very thing that they attack. And that was the thing that they were drawn to.
Right. And that's probably why I used the word supply 10,000 times last night. So I wanted to clarify, because after I watched it, I was like, man, I can't stop saying supply. So we're going to go. Someone had mentioned that they liked that you mentioned about the oxytocin.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and further talk about that, and just get into more details, like what this oxytocin is.
Okay. In order for when a mother has a child, when she gets ready to give birth, there's something that's released called oxytocin. Oxytocin is for bonding. So you can go into medical terms and find out how you bond, but a lot of times it's released during childbirth, so the mother and the baby can bond. Now, it also happens during the time where there's intimacy. So you can have a good friendship, you can have an intimate relationship. It has to be something that's intimate, and it causes you to bond. And that's what actually is being used. And so what happens is, when it comes to a narcissistic relationship, when they come into something with an empath, it's called trauma bonding. And what happens is, when they trauma bond, they take and use intimacy, pulling you in and drawing into your emotions and things like that. And it was based out of trauma. So they pull you in based out of them telling you about their trauma. And so what you do is, now you go into a protective mode. And that's what causes you not to disconnect, because now you're bonding and you bonded, and you want to make sure they're protected, because that's why a mother, she releases the oxytocin, so she can bond with her baby and protect. So we actually release that. And dopamine is another thing that we release also. That is that euphoria, that good feeling. and everything. You'll notice though that a lot of that's that feel good chemical, and a lot of empaths don't need a lot of it. So that means we can go and read a book and we can recharge or something like that because we're more introverted, so we don't need a lot of it. So those are two very big things that are used in trauma bonding, but the main one is a chemical oxytocin, and that pulls you in. And that's why they call it like, you can have a person that they beat you or something like that, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, because they like the make-up love part.
Right.
So you hate me, then you love me.
So yeah. someone like from the outside will say, how come you just don't leave him? Or how come you just don't leave her? And we look at it like, man, like, what's up? Like, you're smarter than that. Like, you've overcame this and you overcame that. Like, how come you stuck? And because it talks a lot about like what you had mentioned last night, like there's almost this addiction with one another.
Yeah, and we have chemicals. We're made up of chemicals. That's how also you could be in a relationship. When I was in it, my hormones changed. Everything, my whole makeup, I started getting really bad migraines on a regular basis. I could tell when the person was about to call. Literally, it would just be so upset. And then as soon as I was able to disconnect, I was able, the fog actually cleared up, and I was able to disconnect with that chemical. I no longer had the headaches. I no longer had the hormonal issues. It just became life, that everything was changing, but everything started going back to normal. And then you start getting cortisol in your stomach. That's what caused the stress that causes it lands right there. You can have a flat stomach, but if you end up in a messed up relationship like that, first thing that's going to explode is your stomach.
Right.
Because of the stress. Because you're dealing with stress. Yeah.
I like, there's actually a couple of people I know that have gone like over and over and over for stomach testing. And it's like, have you tried this? Or have you tried therapy? And if you're like, no, it's not that. It's something else. I'm like, all right. You know?
But it is proven that after you disconnect from that source, the first thing that you're going to have is digestive problems. Whether you have problems making bowel movements, whether you have problems with your stomach and everything, because you're used to that chemical being stimulated. So the first thing you do is start having stomach problems. Yeah.
What kind of traits do a narcissist have?
Okay. So that's where it comes in at. You're going to start looking at number one, a narcissist, like with an empath, you're more so born with that trait, that sense of empathy and everything like that. You have different types of it, but a narcissist, their behavior and their mental state is created because of their environment. So that's why it's hard for them. They say we believe in the power of prayer and things like that. So that may give them a chance. But in the world and in the medical field, they basically state that there is no cure for the narcissist. Whether it's counseling or anything, there's really no cure.
So what you're saying is that they always need supply.
No matter what. They'll live like that for the rest of their lives because they have been trained from a child, and this is how their neurons and things like that work in their mind. So they'll be constantly stimulated by that. And that's the unfortunate part.
And so one thing that we had discussed earlier, about one of the traits is like they're easy to like, for the empath, it's very hard to leave the narcissist because they know that they're about to be like almost got like, well, you're going to talk about it. Go ahead and talk about the traits. I'm over here getting ahead of you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, one of them, they'll have a grandiose sense of self-importance. Now, one thing you're going to look at is sometimes you'll look at it, well, I'm more empathetic, but at times I have this. Please understand that we can have narcissistic traits. Just because you're an empath does not mean that the other part of you won't rise up.
Oh yeah, I had
Sometimes
it.
it
The
comes
me stage.
out. Excuse me.
I had
Yeah,
it. The me stage. Yeah, I definitely
yeah.
had it.
And sometimes it comes out. Sometimes you can have a narcissistic parent, and that doesn't necessarily mean the parent has to be even there all the time. You just pick up traits from them, not even being there. But sometimes what will happen is, even though you're an empath, you will sometimes act out on that. So, an empath is not a narcissist. They can have some of the traits, but that doesn't mean they'll actually feel bad when they do something wrong. A
Mhm.
narcissist does not feel bad about anything
Or
because
pretend
it can't
pretend
feel.
they feel bad.
Yeah, they can pretend all they
Oh,
want.
yeah.
It's gonna
Oh,
come out. They
I'm
don't care.
sorry for what I did, and that would
Yeah,
last like a day.
yeah, and but a empath, they will go and they'll try to fix it if they pull the narcissistic tactic. So that's a sign. But they have a grandiose sense of self-importance, lives in a fantasy world that supports their delusions and grandeur, needs constant praise and admiration. You always got to blow them up all the time. They just don't
I called them the
self-soothe.
puppets.
Yeah,
I was one for a decade, and I didn't even know it. I was like,
yeah, yeah. It's like, you know what? You're beautiful. You're beautiful. But what about me? You know what? Look in the mirror. You need to have more self-confidence. But
right.
you look good. No. So, but a sense
And
of entitlement. We're
they're
going through
obsessed with
that even
image.
in our world. And even in our country, you got people that it's almost like the empaths against the narcissists. You
Mhm.
got the empaths that was like, well, we understand what the teachers may be going through, what the kids may be going through. We understand why you gotta wear masks. And they're not, you ain't gonna tell me that I need to do such and such. Well, what about the safety of other people? That don't have nothing to do with me. So you're noticing that it's almost like a fight, not against race or not against parties, but against personality. So you got the empaths that are just they're just everything. They're falling apart about everything that's happening, and you got the narcissists that ain't got nothing to do with me, you know. And
Right.
so that's where it's at. Now,
And one thing I want to like, they're obsessed with their image. They're obsessed with
yeah,
reputation.
yeah,
They're
you're gonna see that in this one. It says exploit. Now this is gonna be another one. Exploits others without guilt or shame, and we just talked about that. Now I want to bring up something, and I mentioned it yesterday. I think we talked about the flying monkeys. Well, I've
mm,
talked about that before. The flying monkeys, and that's kind of a term when you saw like the Wizard of Oz and the witch. She released flying monkeys and the flying monkeys went and did her bidding. So you'll look up narcissist. If you know that if you know that you've been around a narcissist, one thing you're gonna see is they're gonna have an entourage of flying monkeys. Now, me as an empath, I wouldn't want to be considered as somebody's flunky or flying monkey. But some people take that job. They, you know what? They want to spy on the supply. They want to come back and bring reports. They want to see what's going on, and they don't realize that's exploiting them and would discard them when they're no longer of any use.
you,
So,
you're right.
huh?
Like I didn't know that I call like you call flying monkeys. I call it a puppet. I didn't know like it's almost frustrating because it's like you consider yourself to be a good friend, and
Yeah,
then you are a good friend to a narcissist, and then you're
yeah,
like, man, how? Like, I literally just wanted to be a good friend, and all of a sudden, like this whole time you were using me or you were lying to me, and all of a sudden you have all these questions, and you're like, man, how did this happen? So whether it's in a relationship or in a friendship or whatever, you're it's there's something in you that draws and attracts these
yeah,
vampires, and so you're kind of it's almost like you get frustrated with yourself
right,
to you almost want to cut people off.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know I told you the story that I was at I'm gonna cuss right now, so all right, earmuffs people. I was at the stage one time because I was so tired of being used. I was at the fuck you people. I was at that stage because I was like, man, I don't trust people no more.
Well, the thing about it is the unfortunate part because the flying monkeys don't realize that they are not narcissists, and then they're really not good friends. They're just being used.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if they're no longer a good, source of information without guilt or shame, they'll cut them off.
Right. It's
And
like if you can't feed this, then
yeah,
we're
and if they're not
friends.
feeding it, and the first sign of it that you'll see that they're being cut off is they'll come back to the supply to try to fix it and feel guilty about the fact that, oh, I should have known that this person was like that. They were using me too. Well,
You
you
see
did not
what she did
realize
to me?
that.
You're right, right. Like you see what she did to me, and then the
Yeah,
flying monkey, like, man, that's so messed up what she did.
yeah,
Like, and then all of a sudden it's like become like a total victim, and you're like, how,
yeah. It's like you feel guilty now, but you've been used and I've been used, but you chose to take the bait. So, just kind of keep it moving. So,
yeah, keep it moving.
yeah, keep it moving. The next one is frequently demeans, intimidates, bullies, or belittle someone. So that's kind of like you were talking like the Jenga puzzle. They're kind of, okay, I'm gonna take a little piece of this, I'm gonna demean you, I'm gonna intimidate you, I'm gonna make you feel like you're kind of uncomfortable, I'm gonna bully you, and I'm gonna belittle you. And so you can be the perfect shape and they can be out of shape, but they're saying something regarding your shape to make you question what's going on with your shape. Or they want to redress you. You can dress the perfect way and they want to change the way you dress to be. And normally when they start doing that is because they've identified another source. Now, another thing that they do, they're good imitators. And they've even gotten to a point as to where you can have a person that may be straight, but if they see a supply, do you know they will change their position even in their own life
Oh,
to
see
make
it
sure
all the
they
time.
get a supply, because they're good image, they're good mirrors, and they don't realize it that, okay, and then you look up one day they go back to being straight again, but they actually flipped the script in order to do a supply. So you really can't trust a person
As
like
you
that.
call it, oxytocin to get their
Yeah,
oxytocin on.
yeah, exactly. Uh, they expect to be recognized as superior even without any achievements and a talent. So you know what, you want to be buffed up. You can't. You ain't doing nothing good, but you still want somebody to tell you that you're doing good today. No, boo boo, not today. You are not doing good. And you better not tell them that. So they become occupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, and beauty of the perfect mate. So therefore, so you'll notice that they'll have people, even with friendships, they'll look at you, but it's always they're looking for somebody that's better than you to size you up. They take advantage of others to get what they want. They're envious of others and believe others envy them. So what it is you don't see a trait about them that you want, but yet they see all the traits that they want about you. But then when you don't say anything about their traits, they get mad at you because you're not envious. And that's what they'll say. Oh,
Or you're
you're
not being a good friend.
yeah, it's like I don't see anything in you that I would want because I'm comfortable with myself. Oh, you're just jealous or envious of me. No, I'm not. I'm comfortable in my skin. And so that's the thing. They behave and arrogant and in a haughty manner. They come across as conceited, boastful, and pretentious. Insist on having the best of everything, even at the expense of somebody else. They become very impatient and angry when they don't receive special treatment. So if you're not serving them or whatever in the time that they feel that you should be serving them, then they get upset and they have secret feelings of insecurities, shames, vulnerability, and humiliation. So every time you don't do what they need you to do, or you don't look good as that supply or that source anymore, you're making them not look good.
Right.
And
that's why they won't apologize. That's
yeah,
why they won't. I've met two types of narcissists. One, I've met one that refuses to apologize. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely kind of like, I mean, they can get a bat, break a glass table and be like, I didn't break the glass. You made me do it. So, and
yeah,
then you have another one that's extremely apologetic to the point where it almost confuses you. You're like, well, maybe they're trying to change. No, it's just part of the behavior to keep you
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and they're and the thing about it is they're good actors, and you know, and the thing about it is it's unfortunate that we're actually talking about people,
right,
real human beings, but but this is in the world. A lot of decisions that are being made, and that's why they said you know what, if they're over a company, say for instance, if you come to them and say you have a narcissist that's a boss and you really need to take some time off, you don't come to them and say, you know what, I'm really exhausted, I need to take some time off, because you're definitely not going to get anything. You come to them and say, I need to take this time away because I believe that if I take this time away, it's going to be beneficial to the company and it's going to help build the company up. They'll give you the time then. If it's based on you taking care of you, that's not going to happen.
right.
And
That's a
if
good
you're
point.
not tooting their horn or anything like that, it's just a matter of time that you're no good for them anymore.
Or if you weren't there for them when
Yeah.
they needed, I don't know, let's just say changing a tire or something, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden a couple of days later the same tire got flat, they'll be like, well,
Yeah.
I asked for your help and you didn't help me. So it's like
Yeah.
a very finger pointing thing. And as an empath, you always want to give the best. You always want to be
Right.
there for them. And then
Yeah.
there's this exhaustion level of just like you there's pieces of you missing because the more like what we talked about this earlier. What was some of the key words that some of the things that they would say? Like, let's say we have a whole Jenga, right?
Okay. Oh,
Right.
you're so controlling.
All right, so we take
You know
one out.
what? Or you're a ball buster.
All right,
Or
there's another one.
you know what? You always think you're right. You know what? You always wanna be seen. You know what? Why don't you give somebody else an opportunity? Or you find yourself in a fight like that. And when it comes to an empath, whether people know it or not, intimate relationships, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a spouse, it becomes overwhelming.
It is
Very
because
overwhelming.
you don't want to see yourself as that person. Like, dang man,
Yeah.
I want to be like.
And you're trying to fix everything. You want to make sure you line up, because the whole thing behind a empath is you're about making sure that the other person is comfortable. And that's why you empaths, they go into areas of teaching, and like teachers and maybe pastors, and areas of business that are you going to service people, because you're basically trying to figure out, you're that part of humanity that wants to make sure that everybody is comfortable and everybody is safe. And you'll look at them, they'll be taking care of animals and things like that. And that's our love. And we'll be okay with that. But then you got this other part that they don't think like that.
Right. And this is why people on the outside are like, why don't you just leave? And you're like, because without them knowing, a lot of me is gone, and I don't know how to collect me again.
Right.
To the part.
And then what they'll do is this: they learn how to move those triggers, because remember, it's a chemical. So what'll happen is, if you're ready to disconnect, they'll put on that favorite cologne. Or they'll put on that favorite outfit, or they'll make that favorite dinner, or take you to that favorite restaurant, or say that famous quote, or have you laughing about a movie that you guys would watch together.
You know what? I'm. You know what? You're right. I'm going to see a therapist. I'm going to change. I'm not going to do this to you no more.
Yeah.
You know, all the right words to keep you around another 6 months. So one of the things that I was like reevaluating, right? I think we were talking about this last night. Like, how do you leave, right? Now, I don't know about for you, but my experiences was like this. First of all, I lost it. The first time. So that's one way. Like, it's to be in so denial so much to where your body's like, no more, you're done. And you think that you got it, you think that you got it, that you think that you got, like, you become that Jenga that falls down, and all of a sudden your body just starts breaking down, and you start crying for no reason, and you're like, what is happening? You're not in control no more. So one of the things that I saw an opportunity to leave is that I think that's just my experience, that we all have this opportunity to leave, right? And if you know, I mean, you know deep down, if you don't take this opportunity, you're stuck for another few years.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, the one thing that hesitates you from walking through those doors of freedom is that you know it's not really freedom once you walk through that door, because you're stepping into hell
Yeah.
of more explosions. And so you're like, man, but you know, like, man, I can't do this for another 2, 3 years. I can't do this for another 6 years. So you just like, you walk through it hoping for the best. So
Right.
that's how, like, to me, like, uh, I don't know how way to explain how to leave, but everyone knows deep, deep, deep down, there's always this window of, all right, now's your time
It
to.
is. And you have
Is that
different
is
types
that
of,
your experience or not?
well, yeah, you have different types of empaths. You have your emotional empath, the one that, you really feel all the emotions of everybody. That, you could be in the grocery store and somebody behind you can be in fear, and before now you're in fear, or you'll be sitting in a movie theater. Or you have your intuitive empath. I'm an intuitive empath. That means I get that gut feeling.
Mm,
I know better. I know better. I can play it out. I don't even have to see a vision of it. I can feel it.
mhm.
You need to make this decision. You're not wrong. Don't second guess yourself.
Right, you know.
You know. And what happens is, my thing is, I knew. I
Mhm.
knew.
Oh, I knew
I
too.
knew when it happened. I knew when the oxytocin was released. I can tell you the date. I can tell you the time. I can tell you what happened. I can tell you everything. And right after that, it was almost like I was no longer me that day.
Mhm.
After that, it was within a 6-month time, my entire life had changed. And it
Oh,
went that way for 4 years until
I
I
can
was
feel
I
that.
could go make my escape. And I knew. So it was almost like I was punishing myself, because I knew better and I didn't take the out. And that was it.
Boom.
So I
That's what it
stayed
is.
there, not because I loved, not because I couldn't get away, but because I was so broken that I had disappointed myself. You knew better, Rhonda, and you didn't do it. So that's when I kind of beat myself up. Rhonda, you knew better, you knew better, you knew better.
And to jump on that, that's why we both said when we finally detached, it's that level of stupidity that takes over you, because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like,
you're just
you
like,
knew
oh,
better.
yeah. And what it is after that, when you realize what it was, you start. If you know what, let me give you a good example of how it was. It was almost like Samson, the story of Samson for me. When I was there, it was like I was at the top of my game with everything. Everything was on point. I mean, success, prosperity, everything was there. And it was like when I meshed, I shaved all my hair. So
Mm,
in shaving all my hair, my strength was gone. So I could no
mm.
longer make the wise decisions. I could no longer do this. I could no longer do that, because I was no longer who I was from the beginning.
Right.
And after that, I began to take on, and I began to look at that story. And that was the thing that I said, I sold my soul to the devil. Literally, I sold my soul. I started making bad decisions and everything. Things that I said that I would never do, I started doing. And I was like, I sold my soul. And finally, I said, and last year, I said, if I get my soul back, just show me how to get it back. And it took some process. And before you know it, my comment was, hair grows back. Because remember, in that story, his hair grew back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when his hair grew back, he went supernova. I didn't have to go that route, but he went supernova and he destroyed everything around him,
Right.
including himself. But
Right. I think that's why when you lose yourself and you regain yourself, there's a certain level of giant in you to where
yes,
you're like,
yes,
oh.
yes.
Because I
And that's
know,
what you feel.
I like, oh, by the way, we're at 29 minutes already.
Oh,
But so I'll say this, like, just because you got caught up in that situation and you fell apart doesn't mean that you have to stay down, or
no,
you have to stay addicted to the like, for me, with the alcohol and all this other stuff. Balance is what is the best recovery.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
knowing that I didn't have to just put all my eggs into one basket to be uneven again. And
Yeah.
obviously we're talking about this because recovery is possible,
Yeah.
redemption is possible, being made whole is made possible because we're living witnesses. A lot of
Yeah.
people are going to love talking about the damage part, but that's because they can't believe that you recovered. They're like, man, how
Yeah.
did she recover from that?
I
And
was
so,
terrified. You know, that was my biggest thing. I was terrified. Am I going to recover? And I was like, I've taken a narcissistic hit,
mhm,
and it was called narcissistic abuse. I'm like, am I going to recover? And that was
right.
the scariest thing. I was looking for a quick fix to help me recover. And I did not realize that just identifying the fact that I wasn't a broken person and
Let
I
me
wasn't a bad person was going to help in my recovery.
right. Let me jump on that real quick before everyone looks for a quick fix. And
Yeah.
that's why I had to go to therapy. And that's what my therapist was trying to tell me. She was like, you don't want to keep pushing the short term button
No.
to get, the satisfying results. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, she went on, drew diagrams, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And to this day, I was like, was I that blind? Or was I still caught up in the situation? Just because you depart from them physically does not mean that you depart from them mentally and emotionally.
Right.
So that's
Exactly.
what she was trying to show me. And I was like, I don't know, bro. So you always want to do things that help you long term,
Yes.
because long term is so much better than anything short term. So
Exactly.
we're already going on 32 minutes. This was again, I know there's so much material, there's so much good things. We're going to discuss offline about maybe a part 3, because we haven't even talked about the empath at all.
Exactly. Now that's the
the,
street. Because anybody that is listening to this, unless they're a flying monkey or a narcissist, they're an empath.
right.
They're drawn
So,
to this because they're an empath.
So we
Yeah.
want. So if you're ever questioning and wondering, like, hey, but so why am I attracted? Why am I always? What's my supply? Why do I keep being in these
Yeah.
situations? So that's going to be our part 3, because
Yeah.
we can't leave y'all hanging like that. So thank you for joining us tonight. I can't believe it's already been 32 minutes into this. So it was another great
Yeah.
Let's Talk. Thank you for joining the Narcissist versus the Empath part 2. Have a good night, and till next time.